Hey everybody, it's Eric J. Olson. We are back for another Lunchtime Live. Today I have the pleasure of having one of my friends, Scott Baxter, on the live stream. Hey Scott.
What's going on, Eric? How we doing?
Hey man, good. Well, hey Scott, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Yeah, man. So I run a company called PlayYourCourt. We've got sort of two, I guess, major pieces to the business. One is that we send top-rated tennis coaches to our customers in any court of their choice. So for lack of a longer explanation, kind of an Uber for tennis lessons model. And then over time, we realized these players needed help meeting other players. So we launched a recurring membership service that helps them meet other players for practice and matches, get video coaching, and some other bells and whistles that come with the membership.
That's awesome. Cool, man. So I know Scott from a common or an organization that we both belong to called Entrepreneurs Organization. And I know a little bit about, actually quite a bit about Scott's story, but there's more that I want to learn about when it comes to how he actually grew his business. So Scott, you know, like we've talked quite a bit about digital marketing in the past, but like tell us kind of like the story maybe of like how you started and, you know, maybe just a couple of the early things that you tried when it comes to marketing. And then when did you actually like start to get into digital marketing and how?
For sure. So I guess all the way back in 2009, I was a tennis coach at a country club in DC. Realized you had to be quite wealthy if you lived in a major metropolitan market to get tennis lessons. Had a bunch of members say, hey, I've got friends that want to take tennis lessons. They can't afford this crazy country club. So basically launched the first version of PlayYourCourt.com. I was a tennis coach turned CEO. I had no idea, you know, the first thing about digital marketing.
What was that first version like? Was it like an email newsletter or something, like really rudimentary?
No. So ironically, like I spent the only $8,000 I had in my savings account in the first version of PlayYourCourt that looks obviously nothing like it does today, but it did a lot, particularly for that time. Like it really did have like some geographic stuff on there, some zip code. Like it was pretty.
You went right into it.
In hindsight, like definitely more impressive than it needed to be now that I think about it. But what I didn't understand is that you couldn't just turn a website on. You had to tell everyone that it existed. So the first year of business was pretty rough. I had this amazing website that I'd spent an exuberant amount of money on, and nobody knew it existed. So admittedly, first marketing attempts were pretty pathetic. I was literally walking door to door, putting flyers in mailboxes, which I've actually since learned is illegal. So don't do that. But that was how the whole thing started. You know, I walked into local tennis shops and was asking if I could put flyers on the counter, like tennis stores, not clubs. So very like rudimentary.
Whatever it took.
Yeah, exactly. Just grind mode. I didn't have a huge budget. You know, anything I could find on the internet that was free at the time. There's a website called tennislessons.com that we've actually since acquired. It was almost like a Craigslist for tennis lessons. So that was some of our early digital spend. But then I realized, hey, like this isn't just going to be a tennis coach running this business. I'm going to have to learn, you know, SEO. I'm going to have to learn digital marketing. I'm going to have to learn these paid channels to get this business working. So pretty self-taught on all of this. I now have a team of people underneath me, you know, obviously that helps manage all this stuff. But basically went from tennis coach to seasoned digital marketer. This is not an affiliate plug, but truthfully, most of my growth came from a company called digitalmarketer.com. There's a guy there named Ryan Dice who runs a pretty awesome business. The idea is he's had all these successful businesses and he has a team that he sort of plugs in and grows the business. And so they released all the execution plans that these teams use, you know, to take any idea from idea to successful business. And that was sort of how I learned Adwords advertising, Facebook advertising, you know, the importance of blog and content and sort of all the different aspects of it. So studied in there for a while. And then, you know, the more successful the business became, the more money I could put back into advertising. And the more you spend, the more you learn. So here I am today, I guess.
Were they helping you do it, or were they teaching you how to do it and then you did it?
No, it was purely teaching me how to do it. And then I did it. Full transparency, if I had a budget and knew about agencies, that would have been probably my first move. Like the done with you would have been a much better experience for me than trying to learn all this stuff from scratch. I have probably wasted over $1 million in failed ad spend in the learning process. So Wish I had known you back then, my friend.
All right. Hey, everybody. We're going to ask Scott a lot of questions, getting kind of nerdy into like the different techniques that he uses. So if you have a question, put it into Facebook Live and we will ask Scott the question within the next 25 minutes. So we're going to be cutting this off at around 12:30 because Scott's got a busy schedule. And by the way, Scott, definitely appreciate your time. So, so you started studying about digital marketing. Did you start applying it right away, or was it kind of like study for a year and then start applying? And where did you go?
I was definitely balling on a budget. So honestly, I started with SEO first, just because that was the lowest hanging fruit, particularly back then. Probably now in 2020, that's not the case. But in 2009, it was very easy to rank for search terms on Google. So I realized that was sort of the first thing I had missed. I've built this website. It doesn't exist to the general public because they're not seeing it when they search for things on Google. So we rebuilt our site structure to include the city name and tennis lessons in the root domain. And then all of a sudden it just magically started ranking first
Oh, wow.
for the search term tennis lessons in all the cities we were open in. So that was a huge lift. And then I realized, well, hey, this Google platform is doing quite well. It seems like I can buy ads here. That seems like the logical next step. So then I started taking all these execution plans through Digital Marketer Lab to learn everything I could about AdWords.
Yep. And so that was what, like 2012, 13 timeframe, something like that?
For sure. And we raised our first round of capital in 2013. So that would be to really play aggressively in there. But yeah, a lot of learning, very minimal spend in the early years. And then as things sort of hit stride and a lot of the organic search traffic made my investment and then some back, I could then reinvest that money into paid ads and start to learn that process. Yeah, unfortunately, like without an agency, it's guess and check, right? Like the only way to learn is to spend, which is tough. So
yeah, it's tough, but in the end, you get the knowledge yourself, which is what you have now, which is amazing, right? So let's talk about the angel investors. So like what was like, why did you decide to take on investment dollars?
For sure. So I reached a point in 2013. I was still a tennis coach. This was my side hustle. I was actually quite happy because I was making a considerable amount of money for my age doing both careers. But I realized that there was a big career opportunity to focus 100% of my energy on the company. I had been outsourcing all of my development work to my now CTO. So I wanted to raise enough money for both him and myself to quit our full-time jobs and make PlayYourCourt our full focus. So in 2013, I raised $250,000 for 38% of my business, which I have since written an article that was published in Forbes called "How Not to Raise Your First Round of Funding." So hindsight's 2020, but at the time it was feed tennis balls for the rest of my life, or take what I knew as a low valuation on my business. If I could make an adjustment there, and hopefully this will save some of you entrepreneurs out there raising some cash. Some equity. What I would have done if I could do it over again was I would have raised enough money, maybe 25, 50 grand, to show the potential of the business. The reason that was such a huge chunk they took out is there was no proven concept of what would happen if we infused more cash into the business, right? So I took a low valuation. Honestly, probably a fair valuation given the results we had shown. So in hindsight, I had raised less money, shown more results, and then given up less equity for that same cash. But
so now you've got a treasure chest of cash that you can deploy somewhere. You had already tried SEO at that point, and you already tried a little bit of advertising, it sounds like. Where did you deploy that money? Yeah,
so AdWords was sort of where about 95% of it, and 95% still today of the lesson side of the business goes there. And if you think about it, it makes sense, right? If I'm looking for something, whether it's tennis lessons or whatever it may be, most people's first step is to go on Google and search for, tennis lessons near me or, whatever you're searching for. So of course that's working for organic. There's a lot of competition in the SEO landscape. It's hard to consistently hold that one position. And even if you're holding that one position, you carry a lot more weight if you hold that one position in organic search and then are also the first ad that shows up. So we're deploying a lot of capital into AdWords. Saw some pretty substantial growth, and still to this day, AdWords is probably about 90% of where our revenue goes or where our budget goes for the lesson side of the business.
So it's interesting that you mentioned like if you have the first position and running an ad as well, because I mean, I still have that debate a lot of times with clients, with prospects, even internally with the team. Like, there's an argument on both sides, right? So the argument to not spend the money is, well, why spend it? You already have #1 ranking. The argument to spend it is someone's going to click on that ad. It might as well be me. Like, have you tried different ways of doing it? And did you look at the analytics and all that? Or how did you figure out to just do it?
Yeah, and it's kind of a simple equation now that I think about it. It was not simple to figure this out, but now that I know this, it makes total sense to me. The bottom line is somebody is going to buy those 2 ad spots that sit on top of all the organic search results, and a large percent of people are going to click those ads, not the first organic search result, right? So even if you rank first in organic search, there are still going to be 2 companies that are going to list in front of you with those paid ad spots, and most of internet traffic isn't going to skip the ads and go right to the organic search. So you are definitely missing out. Even if you're ranking #1, if you're not posting, if you're not posting an ad there and taking that first ad spot, there's definitely lost revenue potential for sure.
That's interesting. So what if it's like a branded search? What if someone searches for your company name? Do you still run an ad for that?
I would say that depends on your industry. And I say that because I've seen some really sketchy stuff go down. Like I've seen in the mattress business, for example, when you search for like Lisa Sleep, which is a local company out of Virginia Beach, like Casper will buy that ad term.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's sort of black hat marketing. I think it's really shitty if somebody is actively searching for my business and then you're buying that ad spot to try and tell them in the ad that our business is not great. But we don't truthfully spend a ton of dollars on that, but we don't have that same interference that a lot of other industries have where our competitors are competing for that space. So what I would say is if you search for, your root domain, if I got on Google right now and searched for PlayYourCourt and I saw one of my competitors' ads show up, then I would turn that on.
Gotcha. All right. We had a little hiccup. I don't know if you saw it on your end too, but I saw it. That's all right. We're back.
Okay, cool.
All right. All right, cool. Hey, we've got a couple of comments and questions. So first we have Kevin Daisy, the co-founder of Ray Digital, says, "What's up, Scott? Happy Friday." Ocasio Gee, who is he's a marketing manager at Groundworks. He was on the Lunchtime Live last week. He also says, "What's up? Happy Friday." And then Sean Burke, who works for us, he has a question: Is AdWords strategy primarily search? And then follow on, how much is devoted to things like display, video, or Gmail campaigns? So I'm guessing he's asking about your Google ad strategy. How much?
Yeah, for sure. Like the breakdown. So yeah, I mean, the large percentage of our ad spend is prospecting for the lesson side of the business. And I'm sure we'll get into the membership side and how important, Facebook and Instagram and other social channels are. But direct intent audiences, people that are jumping on Google, searching for our business, we want to make sure we're capturing the largest percentage of that traffic as we can. And then we, of course, still use the Google platform for retargeting. So once people have come to our website, we, of course, want to follow them around the internet and remind them that
you exist.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, the large majority of our spend is on cold prospecting, where somebody jumps on Google, searches for tennis lessons, and they see our ad for the first time.
Gotcha. So what would you say has been the impact of advertising and maybe even just digital marketing in general to your business?
Yeah, I mean, it's the difference between failure and success, quite simply. I remember sitting down with a fellow guy in the tennis space around 2010 after I launched this website, and he gave me probably $75,000 worth of advice. I just said, I'm exhausted with this. I'm frustrated. I launched this website. I've done everything I can think of to generate word of mouth while balling on a budget here. I'm generating flyers in mailboxes. I'm putting, things up on bulletin boards in grocery stores, and I'm just not making any progress. And he was like, you have an e-com business, kind of makes sense to advertise on the internet. You better figure that out. And obviously provided a lot more detail for some steps to take. But yeah, I mean, I know I talk about Digital Marketer a lot. I swear I don't have any affiliate deal with them. They just made that big of an impact on me as an entrepreneur. I had a ton of success in just running through their execution plans and learning how to set up AdWords. And then once the membership launched, learning how to set up Facebook, learning how important retargeting is and what a big percentage of your ad spend that should be. It's you're not plugging all the holes in your leaky bucket if people come to your website once and then you never talk to them ever again. Like, they thought about buying, they're not done yet. So
that's right.
Yeah, it's been instrumental, man. It's been the difference between the difference between being a tennis coach and being the CEO of a multi-million-dollar business, I suppose.
That's awesome, man. I did the exact same thing with like that guerrilla marketing tactic where like you drop business cards in random places as you're going around town. You put them up on the bulletin boards and knocking on doors and making those cold calls, and it sucks. And it's like you don't get anywhere. But it seems like a lot of new entrepreneurs just kind of go through that phase. Like they're just trying to get attention any way that they can without spending any money. So I think like one of the things that like you stumbled upon and got the advice for is like you got to make money, or you have to spend money to make money. And if you don't, like you're going to always be putting your business cards up on bulletin boards and getting nothing in return for it. So I think it's important to spend the money.
Yeah. And I think honestly, man, like for guys that are in a startup and that don't have cash, maybe that's not reality, but I see so many successful business owners just being cheap and they're actually shooting themselves in the foot. Like knowing what I know now, I can't imagine not spending money on AdWords and Facebook every single day. And I also can't imagine that I would start from scratch and learn this all over again. I would seek out an agency or somebody like Array Digital probably that's already tested a bunch of things with other people's money and knows the answers to the questions that I'm looking for. Agencies are obviously not necessarily for startups that aren't well funded, but they darn well should be for every other successful business out there.
There's just so many moving parts. And like every single day, there's some big news that's coming out in digital marketing where there's a big breaking change. Facebook's changing something. Google's changing something. Frankly, it's a full-time job. But I give you a lot of kudos for learning it yourself. It is not easy. It's a multi-year journey. But at the time,
the learning never stops. That's the toughest part.
You're exactly right. Yeah, exactly. But it sounds like at the time, you had the time. If you were to go, like, if you wanted to do that now, like start learning from nothing to get something, you probably wouldn't even have the time because you have the business that you're running. But then again, you wouldn't have that.
I'll give you a perfect example. I don't know anything about Snapchat advertising, and with my schedule now, I'm not going to go learn, and I'm not in startup mode anymore. So we actually outsource what we think to be the best Snapchat agency in the world to take a stab at that for us and see if it works or not. Like that spend is very worth the energy. And
nice. Very cool.
That the best Snapchat agency in the world is better than we are at it. So,
all right, we got a couple of comments and questions. So Zach Miller says beard life. He's digging your beard.
Nice.
You got a little bit of gray going in there, man.
That's because I was running a startup for 10 years.
All right. Jim Roberts says, fantastic interview. And you also asked a question. You mentioned blogging early on. Can you elaborate on that part of your strategy?
For sure. And I'll be honest with you, content marketing was way, way easier to make money off of in the early 2000s, in 2010, 2011 than it is today. For the same reason organic search was so easy. You could publish an article called How to Find a Tennis Coach That's Right for You. And if that was in your URL and somebody did a search for how do I find a tennis coach, that article would show up. So that was a huge part of our strategy initially. It's become a lot more complicated than that. Nowadays, the content that we put out, we'll actually send paid traffic to it, and we'll use it as sort of a warm, temperature-based funnel. So you've never heard of PlayYourCourt. Rather than maybe just jamming an ad right in front of your face, maybe we show you a post on, 10 things that tennis players are obsessed with, right? So I'll run a Facebook ad to, hey, 10 things tennis players are obsessed with. We'll get an extremely low cost per click to that ad. So in other words, I can get traffic to that landing page for a really inexpensive price. And I know if you click something that says 10 things tennis players are obsessed with, you've basically just raised your hand and said, hi, I'm a tennis player. So now I've got an audience of tennis players on my blog. I'll then turn back to paid media to retarget those people with our services and products. So in a lot of ways nowadays, it's a way to create an audience. It's also a great way to capture emails and then, do a follow-up funnel on the back end. So we'll run something very similar. Like we'll run a Facebook ad to a campaign that's go here to add 15 miles per hour to your serve in 3 minutes or less. It's a video, but they've got to put an email address in. They've got to opt in to watch the video. And then now we can follow up with them. Now we've got their contact information. We can let them know a little bit more about what we do. We can sell them our products and services on the back end after we've built the relationship. So content has moved way more in that direction as sort of like step one in their relationship to warm them up before you just jam ads down their throat.
Yeah. I mean, that's interesting that you're spending money to drive people to an article And the reason I say that's interesting is because like we had talked about like a lot of business owners, they just don't want to spend money on these things. And they think that if they put an article out that they're going to get free SEO. So they don't want to pay for the traffic to get people to that article.
All right.
It's a good investment. I agree with you. Ocasio asks similar question. How much time do you spend on content development? And maybe break that up as to like the early days versus now.
So I think this is going to be a relief to a lot of entrepreneurs out there, because I think a lot of us, we do our studying, we listen to these digital marketing experts, and a lot of them are going to tell you, you need an in-house content team. You've got to create new content every single day. What I've found, the way that we use content, we're sending paid ads to that content. You only need 2 or 3 pieces of great content to turn on an evergreen paid ad funnel to it and have it do everything that you were hoping would happen with 100 pieces of content. So it's more important to me that you've got really high quality content and that you're doing the right things and you're setting them up inside of the correct funnels than it is that you just create 100 blog posts because somebody told you should.
Yeah. So let's dive into that a little bit. So let's say you want to do the strategy, right? You want to have a paid ad that sends people to a piece of content that you treat as a landing page. Do you think that you should create 3 pieces that you think are best, or should you create like quite a few pieces and kind of test them all out?
Yeah, definitely testing. I mean, the answer, unfortunately, for digital marketers to every question is test it, right?
Yeah.
You can't just assume that first blog article, maybe you write this blog article, you turn a Facebook ad onto it, and the content doesn't resonate. Maybe your cost per click's way too high and nobody cares about your article. So that could be a shortcoming you could have. Maybe
Right.
you write the article and that video on how to add 15 miles per hour to your serve just stinks and nobody trusts you. Maybe you've done damage to your brand by sending them to watch this really horrible instruction that you filmed. So the content's got to be high quality for 2 reasons. One, people need to care about it. They need to be interested in it. But then 2, if you deliver value in that content, you become an authority on the subject matter, and then you're way more likely to convince them to purchase something from you in that same field. So content really should be used as a way, I say, to warm up the relationship, but it's used selfishly as a way to identify yourself as an authority in the space where you sell product and services.
Very cool. And what if we had like, let's say you have like 20 articles or maybe 100, right? You have 100 articles that you wrote in the past, and just one of these articles just keeps getting like organic traffic. Do you think that's the one that you should be running the ads for if people are finding it through Google naturally?
It certainly means that's something that people are seeking out the most, right? So I think the answer is probably yes, but I you need to look at the data to be sure. But yeah, I mean, something that's getting a lot of organic traffic. Clearly, there's a lot of interest on that subject matter. A lot of people are searching for it on Google. Would stand to reason to me that throwing an ad towards that same content on an interrupter platform would have more success than one that's not getting sought out.
Gotcha. Very cool. All right, cool. So what we've talked about so far is the lesson side of the business. So as a reminder to everybody, there's really 2 sides of the business for Scott. One is where if I wanted to find a tennis instructor, I would go to the lesson side of the business. And that was his first part of the business. He ran that for several years. And he more recently stood up a second part of his business, which is where if I was a tennis player and I wanted to find someone else to play with, not an instructor, just some other random person kind of like me and my skill level, I would go to the member side. So the member side is relatively new, but one of the things that I think is interesting is that you've taken a pretty different tact on how you advertise for that. So with the lesson side, it's Google and Google search primarily, and then there's retargeting. So Google heavy. What about on the member side?
Purely Facebook. Well, purely interrupter channels, I should say. So, and I think this will make really obvious sense once I explain it. If you want a tennis lesson and you don't know anything about tennis lessons, you go to Google and you search for tennis lessons, and whatever shows up, you're going to say, oh, there's a tennis club. There's this awesome company, PlayYourCourt. There's their competitors. There's the options. If you want someone to play with, you probably don't really know what to do. And that's a pain point that people may have, but they didn't even know there was a solution to. Like a lot of them think I've got to join a country club. A lot of them are just going to make assumptions. Like, I guess I'm just never going to find someone to play tennis with. Like maybe I'll join a tennis league. So like, there's not that same search volume for the product that we sell on Google for our membership. We sort of have to educate people that this exists, right? Think of Uber before it existed. You had no idea if Uber hadn't run ads to you that some stranger could pull up in front of your house in their car and give you a ride. That wasn't a thing. They had to educate you on that service. So same challenge for our membership. We have to use interrupter channels, and the ads have to be intriguing enough and the targeting has to be good enough where I'm scrolling through Facebook looking through photos of my friends, or scrolling through Instagram, doing what I'm doing, and that ad's got to catch my eye enough and twist the knife, twist the pain points enough that I'm experiencing with my tennis journey to want to click on that ad and come over to our win platform and buy. One of the things that I'll tell you we really enjoyed about Facebook is compared to Google is the ability to spend as much higher. On Google, you can open your budgets wide open, but you're only buying cost per click. So you can only buy what people are searching for. On Facebook, you can keep scaling that spend, assuming your cost per acquisition is backing out. So to put it in perspective, we're spending, let's see here, in July, probably around $60,000 on AdWords on the lesson side of the business, but we're going to spend closer to $140,000 this month on Facebook advertising for the membership.
That's a lot, man. That's a big budget. And you're actually like down a little bit because of COVID as far as like your budget, right? You normally spend more than that.
I will say tennis. So the lesson side of the business has taken, we're just lucky, man. It's taken a spike. A lot of news outlets have been saying, hey, tennis lessons is something that is safe to do, or playing tennis is something that's safe to do. So we had a really bad March and April, but as people are more comfortable getting outside and doing outdoor activities, tennis has actually seen some nice growth. So we're lucky there.
Fantastic. That's awesome. All right. Another question from Zach Miller says, any ad fatigue issue with running similar campaigns over and over towards the 3 popular posts?
He's talking about the content.
Yeah. Or I guess really, well, yeah, he is talking about the content, but ad fatigue. So like, how do you, so ad fatigue, like when people keep seeing the same ad over and over again, they kind of get used to it. Do you have that problem, or do you like go to a different audience? How do you deal with ad fatigue?
Yeah, so there's a very specific structure that we follow. So anybody who's spending money on Facebook is probably pretty familiar with what we call CBO, which is campaign budget optimization. So you'll build out a campaign and you'll have different ad sets in there, maybe for different audiences. And then you're going to let Facebook kind of pick which ads inside of which ad sets are working the best and spend the money. It's simply put, it's letting Facebook's algorithm go to work. But what you do to avoid ad fatigue, it's not the article that needs changing. The content's still good. A new tennis player is born every day. Facebook's constantly growing. There's going to, that audience is going to continue to grow, and it's big enough. We're targeting a general tennis interest audience a lot of times is 3.25 million people. So very big audience size. Some Facebook experts would say too broad. But so the only thing that fatigues is, yes, if the same people see your same ads over and over and over again, you're going to see your costs rise over time. What we do is we cycle in ads for the same social post. So the formula here would be you run maybe 3 ads that are going to rotate to that same social post until you start to see the cost per acquisition go up. If they're working, you're going to leave them on. If they're not working, you're going to turn them off and introduce new ads. But you're going to find hopefully 3 specific ad copies and creatives that are doing well, and you're going to leave those on until they start to fatigue. When they start to fatigue, you're going to introduce in 3 new, and it's pushing to the same content. It's just maybe it's a new image, maybe it's a new video, maybe it's slightly different copy. What we found is honestly introducing new creative, meaning like the video or the picture, a lot of times is plenty for a refresher. But you won't abandon the stuff that worked in the past. You're just going to rotate it back in a couple months when it's fresh. So like a perfect example, Nate's the gentleman who's on camera with me filming video content. We filmed a commercial that went full blown viral. It's had over 2 million views. It's very similar to like the Dollar Shave Club commercial, if you've seen that. So we put probably almost $800,000 worth of ad spend into just that asset last year. And of course, eventually it fatigued. We turned it off for a couple months. We turned it right back on and started performing the same it did the first week we launched it. So it's not like, I think marketers are confused. When ads fatigue, it's not forever. It's just give them a break. They worked. They're going to work again more times than not. Just give them some time to hide from the audiences you're going to put them in front of.
That's a really interesting concept about bringing it back after it's had some time to rest. And I don't think we've done a lot of that, frankly. Like usually we're just replacing.
Some of the most successful businesses I've seen that spend millions of dollars a month in advertising only have a total of 10 ads. and they're running 6 of them. And then when they see one start to fatigue, they plug another one in. And then it's just like a pinball bouncing around between these 10 ads where only 6 of them are going to be live. So yeah, I mean, you don't need to reinvent the wheel every month. Stuff that worked last month will work again in 2 months. It just needs to be fresh again. And the way that happens is by not running it evergreen.
That is really interesting. And so yeah, we're going to try that. So I appreciate that tip.
Yeah,
that's really cool, because it gets exhausting to have to create new creative, whatever it is. And we've gotten into that situation ourselves where like we're constantly creating videos or a blog post, and we're always creating something new. But we have this huge back catalog of all the things we've done in the past. We need to recycle that, right? Bring it back, like you said. So
I mean,
that's
I'll tell you what I do with promotions too for my business. It's very similar, and it took me probably 9 years to figure this out. I was always trying to come up with the next big reason for somebody that's in my email list that hasn't become a member to buy. And what I've realized, I have 3 promotions that do really, really well. I just cycle them. Like, you don't need to reinvent the wheel every month. Like, take what's working in your business, give it a month to breathe so that it becomes new and fresh again, and reintroduce it. There's no reason to constantly try and reinvent a genius idea every single quarter.
I love it, man. All right. So you certainly have come a long way from tennis coach through digital marketer. And where else have you gone to learn? Like, so there's digital marketer, and what was the next step for you?
Yeah, so this is going to sound mildly obnoxious, but so one thing I really truly believe in is investing in yourself will grow your business tenfold. So I'm part of a very expensive community called War Room. It's actually the mastermind for the digital marketer community. They've clearly done a good job of sending me through all of their products because I bought them all. But I'm in this digital marketing mastermind that costs $25,000 a year to be a part of. And I'm sure a lot of you out there are like, Scott, you lost your mind. Like, there's no way. Like, how on earth can you justify spending 25 grand? Well, in my very first War Room meeting ever, I had maybe the simplest idea I even heard there was this idea of a mystery gift. If you add a mystery gift to your checkout page, I've got a monthly and an annual option for people to take our membership. And one of the guys in this mastermind spoke from experience. He said, look, I was trying in my membership to get more people to try my annual out instead of my monthly, because I'm seeing lower churn on annual. And what I tried is I offered a mystery gift. And the mystery gift for us is a video course we normally sell for like $100. But by introducing just this one small tiny thing I learned in literally the first 5 minutes I was a member of War Room, it made me 125 grand back in the increase in annual take rate. So the bottom line is, you can try and go learn all this stuff on the internet, or you can invest in yourself and learn these tricks that all these other successful business owners already have, and just apply them to your business, and it's going to tenfold make up the difference you paid to join the community.
Wow, that's awesome.
So
you froze for a second. I don't know if it was you or if it was me, but I got it, man. That's killer. So $25,000 a year investment, and you immediately got a $125,000 return. So that's the power of investing in yourself. Well, hey, man, we are a little bit over time. I appreciate it. Where can people go to find you, to find your company?
Yeah, so feel free. I love helping entrepreneurs that are struggling. So if you want to message me, feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn. Name is Scott Baxter. If you want to check out my company, it's PlayYourCourt.com. You'll see the lessons and membership service there. So if you're a struggling tennis player, we definitely got your solutions there. So check that out if you're a tennis player as well.
Awesome, Scott. Hey, man, I appreciate it. Thanks.
For sure.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, man.